I want to talk about the restraining order that Rachel got against Mark. Restraining order that was granted in April of 2024. When she got that order in April, she drove back to the home literally the next day after she got the order and tried to make entry to the home. I'm going to show you a video right now of her attempting to use the keypad and enter the home. Let's go to the tape. This process of getting a restraining order was incredibly calculated. It speaks volumes to what she's capable of. We need to think about the timing of this for a moment. There's a tape that will likely be the last episode of this podcast that I have. It's a tape that Mark made of Rachel. He recorded it. He was staying in an RV outside of their home when things weren't good, after she had been caught with Russ, after she was caught in her cancer scam and affair, what had become just an emotional affair at the time with me. And after that, Rachel began to work on reconciliation with Mark. At least she had Mark thinking that. But she was also seeing Russ. And she and I were still talking a little bit. She had me thinking Mark was really a bad man. He was holding her hostage. Parts of the hospital story were true. The being held beyond her will, against her will, that was in part true, according to her. In March, the 28th of March, Rachel and Mark had an argument in this RV that Mark was staying in that belongs to Mark and Rachel in their driveway. Mark said Rachel freaked out. Freaked the fuck out. She threw herself on the ground face first. Drama. Mark called his brother. He said, "You're not going to believe what I just saw." Rachel just threw herself on the ground. Mark's brother said, "You need to be careful. You need to start recording everything. She's going to accuse you of abuse." I thought, man, that's crazy. It's like something you'd see on TV or in a movie. It's incredible that someone would do this. So he recorded her the next night. I have that tape. That conversation is damning because what Rachel says during that conversation is incredibly telling. Mark said, "Listen, I want to talk to the girls about what's happened, about what you've done in your life that's led to us splitting up." And she said the girls can't know this. They can't know about Harry and the cancer scam. They can't know about the affair with Russ. They can't know about the fake pregnancies and the other men. There are many other men. They can't know this. They're too young, Mark. They're too young.
Why do they need to know that?
Why wouldn't they? They're going to know anyway.
Why?
Because they're going to. Because
you're going to tell them.
I don't hide the truth from my kids. I'm not going to do it. Okay? Dad, why did you and mom split up? Well, this is what happened, girls. This is what I found out, and this is why we're no longer together.
So just take them, Mark, because they're never going to trust me again.
They would if you came clean and told them the truth. Why wouldn't it matter? See, that's where you're wrong.
Everybody in my life has turned their back on me.
Nobody's turned your back on... Nobody.
Everybody.
Nobody. I haven't.
Yes, you have.
No, I have not turned my back on you. I didn't leave the house and say, "Hey, fuck you, deal with this shit on your own." I'm the one that's paying for you to go to counseling. I'm doing whatever I can to help you. I'm talking to you every day. But you just keep lying to me, and it wears on you after a while.
They're too young. He sent me that tape in March of 2024, or actually beginning of April. And he said, "Listen to this." And Rachel admits to all her lies, to a big chunk of these scams she was running. I listened to a couple minutes of it, and I thought, I can't listen anymore, and I put it away. I put it away for a year. And then while season 2 was going on, I started to listen to that tape and thought, can I play it? It was recorded without her consent. What sort of risk am I putting myself at by playing that tape? I'm going to play it unedited. I'm going to beep the names of the kids out, but I'm not going to edit it. Tape is easy to validate. It's her, it's him. But the reason that Rachel said the girls can't know, they can't know the truth, it's because narcissists can't deal with anyone that knows the truth in their life. That's an automatic ejection. So I heard that, and I thought things are starting to make sense with what's happening right now with the restraining order, with Mark potentially facing prison time. The narcissist will push anyone that figures out who and what they are out of their lives. She did it with the daughter formerly known as Madison. She threatened her other daughters with being abolished from the family if they communicated with Madison. Imagine saying that to one of your kids. She couldn't have anybody in her life that knows what she is and who she is. They can't know she was a hooker or a stripper or a nude dancer, nude model. Listen, the concept of being a dancer or a stripper or a nude model, I understand that. Those are legal ways to make a living. Plenty of people do it. Plenty of people make an honest wage. It's a job. It's a living. And I have nothing against that. But when you talk about being a hooker or a prostitute or an escort, that's a little tougher for some people to swallow. I've been honest with you, probably to a fault. I met Rachel when she was working as an escort in Houston. I had one experience with her. One experience where I reached into my pocket and I paid for it. I've paid for that mistake over and over and fucking over again. I think I'm paying for that mistake right now. But that's the reality of what it was. And that's the reality of who she is. She doesn't want her daughters to know any of this. She doesn't want her daughters to hear this. Her daughters hear about this. They listen. Unfortunately, her daughters have heard about this in school. After social media started, I was hearing from parents. I was hearing from people that know Rachel and they know her daughters. Parents from school. I recorded a video. I recorded a couple of videos last summer, and I said, listen, if your kids are in school with Rachel's kids and you hear about this story, get your arms around it. Because kids are awful, especially girls, and she's got girls. No bullying. The girls have nothing to do with this story other than their mother is a sociopathic and pathological liar and narcissist. The girls have nothing to do with it. Leave them alone. Leave them be. I did that. And I think it was important to do that. I think it's still important to do that. Those girls are still in school. They're still living in the shadow of this. And if you've got a kid in school with them and you're just hearing about this or you're just watching this and you didn't see that video, please take those words to heart. I don't want anyone bullied. I don't want Rachel bullied. I got a message from somebody last summer when this all broke on social media. A young kid who said, hey man, what's her name? What's her handle on social media? What's her handle on Insta? You kids with Insta, the fucking abbreviations, Insta. He said, I want to give her a little dose of her own medicine. I want to screw with her a little bit. I looked at his profile. I'm like, young man, listen to me right now. I don't need you to fight my battles for me. And I don't want her bullied. For as shitty as this is, for what she did to me, don't get in the middle of this. I don't need you in the middle of my fight. If you're her friend and you decide to not be her friend, or you work with her and you don't want to communicate, that's your business. But don't bully her. Don't bully your kids. This thing with the kids is so crazy. Some of the parents that have reached out to me, some of those parents have said, listen, I carpooled. I took those kids to school. I had those kids in my car. One of the parents has a story. Said, at some point in the last couple of years, I was driving the daughter because Rachel was on a trip. Rachel's daughter said, oh yeah, she's doing something with her pilot's license, doing some flight training. And I thought, when I heard that story, you know, Rachel presented herself in this way to family and friends, to her community, as a lawyer, as a pilot, whatever thing she was choosing. She did that. And not only were the kids buying the story, her daughters, but her daughters were perpetuating this lie. Oh yeah, my mom's a pilot. She's in flight training in Dallas right now at American Airlines headquarters. Her kids were brought into it. I don't think they were complicit. I don't think they knew what they were doing, but they believed it. And the parents of their friends believed it. And Rachel, she was a hero in her own mind, overcoming tragedies and adversity to become all of these things that she never was, that she was never good enough to be, never smart enough to be. She never could have been a pilot. She never could have been a lawyer. She barely graduated high school. She was never good enough. In the tape that you're going to hear on the last episode, whenever that is, whenever I'm done telling my story, whenever I'm done taking my power back, you're going to hear her say that everyone in her life has turned their back on her. The poor me in that is unbelievable. Let's be honest. She wasn't smart enough to be a lawyer, wasn't smart enough or good enough to be a pilot, has taken only 2 flying lessons in her life, was never an RN, was never a trauma nurse, was never a helicopter pilot. All the other shit she invented. She wasn't good enough for any of that. She wasn't even good enough to be a good mom. What sort of mom alienates her kids from other kids? She's smart, though. She's sneaky smart. That evil smart. Remember what I told you. She created this doctor while she was in the hospital. This doctor that would be a miracle of sorts for her. Be a guy that would come in and save the day on multiple levels for Rachel. This doctor, Dr. Holt, you can hear his likeness in season 2. He would say to me, Harry, this is tough on you. Make sure you're taking care of you. Make sure you're talking to somebody. It's Rachel, as if to say, I'm fucking with you pretty good. This is probably going to take a toll. You're probably going to be in some mental health trouble. She's calculated. She's cold. She's thoughtless. She's every one of those things and so much more. I want to get back to talking about the restraining order for a minute and this court case against Mark. The calculation involved with this order and with all of this it's next level. When she did it, when she did what she did, to me, I just, I didn't know what to say. She, with Mark, was going from, asking for grace and forgiveness to realizing that she was going to be exposed. And she thought, I got to create something. She goes to counseling with Mark, looking to repair the marriage. Yet she's still seeing Russ. She's still communicating with me. And then she realizes that he's done. He's going to bounce. This caused panic with her. After Mark says, I'm done, and Rachel realizes that if he's done, he can tell the girls every dirty little secret in Rachel's life. The fake pregnancies, the fake cancer, everything. Gaslighting and sociopathic and pathological schemes and behavior, all of that, all the things. She goes to a judge and does what she does so well. She makes a plan immediately to move out of the house. She puts those wheels in motion. She moves out of the house, and the next day, she goes to the judge with a diary and some notes and some fake text messages. Gets her story in play. The judge, they believe Rachel because she's a victim. You believe the victim. We have to believe the victim. And guess what? She gets the restraining order. So on April 15th of 2024, Rachel is granted a restraining order. She does all those things and much more. Every one of them. 2 weeks from the time that she's talking to Mark about staying with her and doing her little boo-hoo that Mark should just take the girls. They'd be better off without her. She goes with the full court press, the Tom Brady, the Hail Mary. Within 24 hours of moving out. Think about that for a minute. How calculated. How cold. She told the court that she was terrified. Mark is violent. He's abusive. He does horrible, unspeakable things. Yet, the day after the restraining order is issued, she tries to make entry to the home after the order's granted. By the way, Mark's car was in the driveway. Why? Why'd you go back to the house? What'd you need to see? What was so important? The court will see that evidence as I sit here and tape this. The preliminary hearings are still ongoing for Mark. The judge hasn't seen this evidence, this tape of Rachel attempting to enter the home. The judge will. Mark is in front of Judge Fry in San Luis Obispo County Court versus Family Court, where the restraining order was granted. That's because there's a case against Mark, the state of California versus Mark, based on these allegations of domestic violence and text messages that Rachel has received from Mark. There are videos here on YouTube which show you what they call irrefutable evidence. Evidence that the police subpoenaed a company called the Pinger Corporation. They own an app called Text Free. Text Free is what you can use to send people a text from a number that's not yours. Can't make calls, just send texts. That evidence was exposed this week in court. Judge Fry saw it. The district attorney built their case in part. 4 items in their pleading. The state versus Mark. talk about those text messages. They were falsified. The DA, by the way, San Luis Obispo County, Dan Dow, and his assistant district attorney, they included this and try to put it through in front of Judge Fry to get Mark convicted. Listen, I'm a pro-law enforcement guy. I'm a law and order guy. The district attorney had this evidence. The district attorney had everything they needed to throw that part of their case out. As a matter of fact, on May 19th, I was in San Luis Obispo. When I went to San Luis Obispo and I saw them talking about these text messages, I was dumbfounded. I had talked to the police detective. I had seen the evidence. After the hearing, I approached the assistant district attorney, said, I have a question for you. And I started to introduce myself, stuck my hand out, did the gentlemanly thing. Nice to meet you, sir. I'm Harry, the Rachel cancer scam. He put his hands up and said, we know who you are. I said, I have a couple questions for you, if I may. I was respectful. I wasn't anything but respectful. And I said, I want to know why you're bringing these charges related to the text messages that Rachel had sent herself against Mark. He didn't even blink. He said, well, there's more evidence, more than that. And I said, what? You mean like the stuff in the police report from Detective Steve Boyette of the Paso Robles Police Department that talk about the fact that when they got access to Rachel's iCloud account after she gave him a fake address, that mysteriously, a couple hours later, that iCloud account was wiped out and Rachel blamed it on Mark? You mean that evidence? I'm not a legal scholar, but I know what's right, and I know what's not right, and what they're doing to Mark is not right. Paso Robles Police Detective Steve Boyette, the guy that arrested Mark in a felony traffic stop, produced a report 6 months later after they realized Rachel was full of shit, after they realized Rachel was sending herself text messages because they subpoenaed Pinger. The Pinger report says clearly, you've probably heard me talk about this, that Rachel set up the account to send herself texts. That report was sent to the district attorney. I had contact with the district attorney's office. I gave them a copy of Boyette's report. I said, you should have this, but if you don't, here it is. What's your email address? I talked to an investigator. I'm not going to talk much about my conversations with them beyond that. I'm not afraid to do that, but I don't want to poison the case. There was an attempt made this week by the district attorney in front of the judge to get Mark to say no to any possible appearance that I may set up for him in Paso Robles. I did one when I was up there, and Mark came. And there were people that listened to this podcast that wanted to visit Mark. They wanted to show support for Mark. It's getting to them. They're worried that it could poison the jury pool. Now, this isn't the Karen Reed case, but we're creating some noise. I know, based on what I heard this week, that the jurors will be asked 2 questions when they're called in. Number 1, do you listen to podcasts? And number 2, have you heard of the Rachel cancer scam? So I need to minimize some of this to some degree. By the way, those text messages, all that stuff, it was thrown out. Steve Boyette didn't even have to show the report to the judge in court. They knew Rachel was lying. They know Rachel's full of shit. She set him up to avoid everything, to avoid the truth with her kids. Mark did an armed robbery in 1992. He went to prison. He's a felon. He's facing prison if he's convicted now, and Rachel knew that. It's the easy way to get rid of him. Set him up. I'm going to get him out of the way forever. By the way, the restraining order that Rachel got against Mark, in the renewal, she is asking for the judge, not Judge Fry, this is Judge Duffy, in Paso Robles Family Court. She's asked Judge Duffy to make that restraining order permanent. A permanent restraining order granted by Judge Duffy would keep Mark from his kids forever. Think about this. All because Rachel doesn't want her daughters to know that she was a hooker and a stripper and a liar about every career accomplishment she is alleged to have had. Because she can't live with the truth, she's going to set Mark up so he goes to prison and he can never talk to his daughters again. That's who we're dealing with. That's what Rachel is. Don't forget to subscribe, to follow me. And thank you for your support. I'll see you next time.